Hello, welcome everyone to the Astro Priestesses Summit 2025 and beyond. And we have here Jaime Goldstein, that is one of the hosts of the summit with me. And we are Astro Priestesses sisters, and Jaime is a wonderful intuitive astrologer who is going to talk about the mind blowing Mercury retrogrades. And we were before recording talking a little bit about the energy, and we are both super inspired. So I hope this conversation is very inspiring for everyone as well. And we are going to talk about the medicine of the Mercury retrograde to start with.
I love this. And it's just so funny, Mar, because I intuitively knew I want to like flow on the Mercury retrogrades for this summit of the astrology of 2025. There was something so like that was speaking to me, and I didn't know why until I started to look at the astrology around the Mercury retrogrades of this year. And it is truly mind-blowing how Mercury is dancing with all of these outer planets that are shifting signs. But the funny thing is like very Mercury retrograde, right? Like when I first came up with a title for the talk, I was like, not sure. Like, let me just come up with something because I need to like to have the things ready for the summit. And then last night, my mind was like so blown, like how epic these Mercury retrogrades this year are. And when we logged on this morning before recording, I was like, I feel like I need to change the title. And you were like, just about like mind-blowing Mercury retrogrades because that's like what I was feeling. And it's very Mercury retrograde to be like, oh, like let me go back and let me like shift and adjust, which is like the invitation of Mercury retrograde, which is why I'm sharing this. But I love Mercury retrogrades. And I think it might be because I have Mercury in Pisces. I know you do too, Mars. So it's like really fun that we get to like flow on this. And what's also really fun is that we're Aries Sun sisters, which is where the first Mercury retrograde starts from Aries into Pisces. Then we have our Mercury in Pisces. So it's like kind of a fun, energetic how it just worked out that way. But my Mercury's not retrograde, but my Mercury is kind of naturally operates in kind of a retrograde way, having my Mercury in Pisces. But I love Mercury retrograde, and I have such an affinity for Mercury. I think maybe because my Venus is in Gemini, I'm just like, I love Mercury. And it really it like really makes my heart sad when like the mob jumps on Mercury, like every Mercury retrograde when people like are just like, when everyone starts blaming everything on Mercury retrograde. And me, I'm like, it's kind of lazy to do that, like to just project all of our stuff onto Mercury, like saying everything's Mercury's fault. I actually feel that Mercury really like bestows blessings on those who have an open heart and a curiosity and a playfulness and a flexibility with Mercury retrogrades because there is a true alchemy, there is a true medicine to Mercury retrogrades. And that's how we first connected, Mar. Actually, kind of the Astro Priestesses, in some sense, we first started to all dance together. And the Mercury Retrograde Alchemy Summit that I did, like back in 2021, with an invitation to invite in a bunch of astrologers to help reframe people's minds on Mercury Retrograde. And this is just in a nutshell. This is what Mercury Retrograde is all about. We're reframing the way we think, the way we perceive, because Mercury is the planet of mind, perception, the way we think, the way we perceive reality, where our attention goes. Mercury is so much more than that, but in a very simplified way, Mercury is how we perceive and understand reality, how we think, how we communicate what we're thinking and what we're understanding and how we're perceiving, how we change our mind through communicating with others. So Mercury is, it's the mental planet, the planet of the mind. And when a planet goes retrograde, we are reorienting the way we relate to that planet, like on an internal level. So Mercury goes retrograde for 3 weeks, about three times a year, sometimes four if it's like at the beginning or end of the year. But every 4 months, Mercury goes retrograde for 3 weeks as a 116-day cycle. And when Mercury goes retrograde, we are reorienting our way of thinking. So we we rethink things, we reframe our understanding, we shift our perspective. It's like every time, and I really notice there's a true alchemy. Like there's so everything is so like multidimensional, but what I notice for myself and clients I work with, every Mercury retrograde, there's like some like way of thinking we have that's really tied to like a deeper like kind of core belief. Like usually there's some type of self-limiting belief that's gonna come up every Mercury retrograde, and it comes up through our way of thinking. And there's this invitation to alchemize our way of thinking, to shift it, to shape shift it into a new way of thinking. So let's say Mercury is going retrograde, like just like for an example, let's say Mercury is going retrograde through our 10th house, which is, really about our sacred contribution to the world. And it can also be very connected to like career, profession, like those kinds of things. So maybe Mercury is going retrograde through our 10th house, and we might start having a lot of like thinking patterns come up around our relationship to our work, our profession, our sacred contribution. And maybe we're starting to notice self-limiting ways of thinking that are always kind of maybe unconsciously like happening for us, but we're not as aware. So when Mercury retrograde happens, those self-limiting ways of thinking, those thinking patterns that are on like automatic pilot, they can become more aware and our conscious awareness. And so then we can notice, like I have these like thinking patterns that are actually maybe they were serving me at one time, but right now they're not really in alignment with the truth of my essence or my highest self, however you want to say that. And there's an opportunity to alchemize it, right? Mercury crosses the sun. Mercury's moving between the earth and sun as Mercury goes retrograde. So to alchemize our way of thinking and the purifying fires of the sun, and to rebirth a new way of thinking that's more an alignment for us. So and Mercury, so there's this energy of shape shifting our way of thinking to alchemize it into something new. And also, there's like another element I want to touch on during Mercury retrograde. Mercury is a sacred trickster planet, and there's a medicine. There is a gift, there's a magic to that sacred trickster energy. Mercury is not like just out to get us. Like when our computer doesn't turn on, when we double book ourselves, when we're having like major miscommunications with people, when we're having like delays, like, with travel or whatever, like Mercury's not out to get us. There's a medicine. What Mercury's trying to get us to do is slow down and pause, disrupt our automatic ways of doing things, and to do something in a new way, to get playful and curious. Like that is the magic of Mercury retrograde. Get playful, get curious. Like, what is the medicine? What is the gift? Like, right? Maybe we have a travel delay at an airport. Like maybe we're missing our connecting flight. And then like something to ask is, was there a gift here? Like maybe there's actually a person we're meant to connect with that would not have happened if we didn't have that missed layover. Like there's always a gift. There's always a medicine. We don't always see it in the moment, but usually with hindsight, we can see it. Maybe we're just like overworking ourselves, and Mercury is like, you know what? I'm just gonna like uh disrupt your Wi-Fi so you can't get on and do that thing, so you can actually just rest and pause. Because when Mercury's our mind, during Mercury retrograde, it's actually an invitation to like slow down and to receive, because it's an inward energy. Receive those cosmic messages from the stars coming and bringing them down and in, to meditate, to connect more with our dream realm, to see the messages from spirit coming through the natural world. So like there's such a medicine here, and that disruptive energy that can happen on Mercury retrograde. What it's doing, it's that sacred trickster. It's like the coyote medicine. It's disrupting our natural ways of being, so we can shift, so we can be flexible, so we can have a new perspective and do something new. And even like with the miscommunications, they do happen because our energy is more inward during Mercury retrograde. So if I'm like my mental energy is actually more inward, I'm probably going to misperceive what you're saying to me because my energy is more inward. I'm not actually as focused on what you're talking about, and vice versa. So it's always great to clarify energy instead of just getting like, like offended or like insulted when we have a miscommunication. But what I find too of the miscommunications during Mercury retrograde is that oftentimes we're having miscommunications with people. We don't realize it. Like we don't know that things are not landing for others in the way that we think they are, or like vice versa. And so maybe there's actually like always a miscommunication and we are just unconscious to it. And then the miscommunication comes up during Mercury retrogrades. And I find they can actually be a great time to repair if we can kind of disrupt any like triggers that we're having and like come to the communication like in a regulated state. Sometimes we need to pause and separate before like coming back to it. There's so much. I mean, I feel like I could go off in like so many directions of Mercury retrograde, but there's a true magic and a true medicine. And I know you have like a wisdom with Mercury retrogrades, Mars. So anything like you want to share and bring in as well.
I love everything that you're sharing, and I think it's the best conversation that I have ever heard about like Mercury retrograde is the shape shifting and is understanding that it's so close to the sun during the retrograde that is really helping us to connect with our sun, to really shine in our unique ways and to like really unveil everything that is protecting us against our truth, like our inner truth. And also something that I feel the reason why it has such a bad rap is because we have an issue with control as human beings. And society in general is really focused on controlling life instead of trusting life. And I think the medicine for 2025 is really releasing control. So for some people, 2025 is going to be an amazing year. For some people who are really control freaks, and we all have our control mechanisms, right? I think it's a year to really get more into the magic of fire and water that are not logical. So Mercury retrograde is not logical, but in this year, in 2025, and now Jamie is going to talk a lot more about the details, is a fire entering water. These are not logical signs. So besides the Mercury retrograde, something that I'm very like fan or like very supportive with is also understanding that Mercury is not just logic and words and mind. That is your case if you have Mercury in air signs. It's perfect. Then your way of perceiving the world is through words, is through linear thinking or communication with other people. But there are like a lot of people who don't have Mercury in air signs. Like some people have them, their own Mercury in water. That is not logical. That is a lot more symbolic. Then in fire, that is a lot more intuitive. Or earth, that is it needs to touch things. It's like, don't tell me you love me. Show me you love me, and then I will perceive your love. So it's very important to understand in our relationships where the other person has their own Mercury, especially if they have Mercury retrograde, is they're going to be against the currents, Natalie, and that is a very interesting thing. But it's also as a global community understanding that the way we perceive reality is not only through our minds. We perceive through our hearts. We perceive, like in Jamie's and my case, is a lot more energetic. Is not so much like, even for me when I read a chart, is the symbols, of course, but there is something that is talking to me through the chart or is talking to me through the person, and is seeing that as a gift. And because Mercury in Pisces, and we are both having that, Natalie, is also something that has bad rap, right? Like that's not a strong Mercury. And both of us are communicators and we work with this. So it's really annoying for me to think that my Mercury is less strong than someone who has a Mercury in Gemini. They just have a different medicine. So reframing and understanding that we have 12 different ways of perceiving the world, and it doesn't matter where we have a Natalie. Mercury is always moving during the year through the 12 signs. So in each month, we have this opportunity of perceiving the world through our senses, perceiving the world through the feelings, perceiving the world through intuition, through passion. So I feel this year, in this case, and now we're going to a lot deeper into why it's mind blowing, is into fire and water. So the medicine here is to really trust life and trust your guts and trust the intuitive hits that you have, that you are like, I don't know. I don't know why. This is, and this is an example is what happened with you, Jamie. It's like, I knew I wanted to talk about Mercury retrograde. I don't know why. And then you go into it and then you see all these mind blowing things that is going to help us to understand big changes that are happening. So I'm looking forward to hear more of.
Oh my gosh, Mar, I really want to do a follow-up video with you on Mercury through the 12 signs on the way of perceiving because it's so true. I have my Mercury in Pisces and I perceive I am picking up on so much energetically from other people and the space around that sometimes it can kind of like drown out like what's actually happening in the physical. But there's a gift to it. There's a medicine to it that I can really tap into. And so, like, often when I first pull up someone's natal chart, I don't even look at all the specific details of the chart, what planets where, like, what are the aspects, all of that. I just kind of like open up a chart and I close my eyes and I kind of just breathe with the chart and feel into it before I'm ever like what's where. Like, and I'm getting a sense of someone's chart without even looking. And often I'll have dreams the night before someone's reading and I've not even pulled up their chart because I actually like usually I'm just looking at their chart right before the reading. I work very intuitively, but I'll get messages in my dreams about their chart or like about what's going on in their life, which is very like Mercury and Pisces too. So this is so fun. I love to do like a follow-up video on that. And one other thing I just want to speak on Mercury retrogrades before we kind of go into like why is it mind-blowing for this year is right, Mercury retrograde is a slowdown. So a lot of times people have issues with Mercury retrograde. I think Adam Summer calls them Mercury retrograde I think he calls them MRIs, like Mercury retrograde interventions or something. A lot of times people have more issues during Mercury retrograde. It's because, you mentioned it, Mark, like they're swimming against the current than going with the current. They're trying to go their typical direction. This is my fast-paced nature of life, like boom, boom, boom. I'm trying to go at that same pace. But when a planet's retrograde, there's a slowdown. So we need to slow down our mental activity, our communications. Like Mercury, this is a personal planet, just like Venus. There's so much about our day-to-day life that is kind of like governed by Mercury. So when we can slow down and create more spaciousness, we actually have less Mercury retrograde interventions come up, right? So like if we actually just slow down and like look at things more closely, we're less likely to like make a mistake and have to go back. So I find you can actually minimize the amount, and I've explored it. I've played with it, like play with it, right? That's Mercury retrograde. I've played with it in my own life. I find I truly do have less of those like frustrating Mercury retrograde type things that happen when I know to just let myself slow down. I need to like pay more attention to things and then you just like have less of them, which is nice, but they still come up and we can honor that they're frustrating, but there's a medicine to them. So, but why is like the Mercury retrogrades of 2025 so interesting? So, what I really noticed, and it was so funny, like I was texting Nora the other day, I was like, oh, I like got to figure out like what I'm going to talk about with this talk. And I was like, I don't know. And then Mar, you're like, well, we could like film it later, And I was like, no, I'm just going to trust what needs to come in is going to come in. And it did. That Mercury is aspecting, like Mercury's dancing with our outer planets that are shifting signs this year. They're going into the new signs, the yang signs, air and fire, and then they're actually retrograding back into the yin signs they've been in, earth and water. So what I'm really talking about is Uranus going from Taurus into Gemini, and Neptune and Saturn going from Pisces into Aries. And then they're like retrograding back into the signs they were a little bit more this year before next year we're having the big shift. And also, Mercury's also dancing with through aspect with Pluto, who just went into Aquarius. So like the outer planets, they are transpersonal energies, especially Uranus and beyond. These are transpersonal energies. They're more unconscious energetics. We can work with them in a conscious way, but they're not as like, the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and you can put like Sun and Moon in there too. They're much more about like our day-to-day happenings, more of our conscious awareness about our like personality. These outer planets are working on like deep psyche type things and our evolution. And so it feels like Mercury, the closest planet to the sun, who's really like dancing with these outer planets. It's like our access point or our entry point into having a new understanding of the energetics that we're working with these outer planets going into the new signs. Like my mind was just like blown. I was like, these Mercury retrogrades are about reorienting how we think we know things to be, to open up to things being like a totally new way, like having a totally new perspective to integrate these really higher frequency shifts that we're having that are these invitations to have these like energetic upgrades to have like these outer planets moving into these new signs. These are the next steps of our evolutionary journey. So our minds are going to have this invitation to open up and perceive things a totally new way. And these Mercury retrogrades are to me, like they're the integration periods to start like working with these new energetics. Like, and what Mar, you just really had a light bulb go off for me when you're speaking about control and like why do people have such a hard time when Mercury retrograde, and that this is such a big theme of 2025, right? Like Mercury is the traditional ruler of Virgo, where the South Node is going to be. And with the South Node in Virgo this year for the next year and a half, and the North Node in Pisces, we're all collectively being asked to work out shadows of our control, to let go, let flow, where we have to surrender having this like tight grip on life, where we're all being asked to let go and let flow. And so Mercury being that traditional ruler of Virgo, that tells me these Mercury retrogrades are so important for us to essentially what we're releasing with the South Node. We're releasing old karmic patterns. I really kind of consider like Vesta to be like I consider her to be like the modern ruler of Virgo, but Mercury's still connected to that Virgo temple. So that feels really important. And to just kind of like start off, like Mar, I love that you spoke about Mercury has elemental years. And they don't always like align with our calendar years, but so like last year, all the Mercury retrogrades were in the fire element. We had one that started in Virgo and then went back into Leo, but we were in a really like fire elemental year. And this year, we're in a fire elemental year that is shifting into a water elemental year. So the first retrograde starts in Aries and goes back into Pisces. The second retrograde of the year is all Leo, so all fire. And then the third retrograde of the year starts in Sagittarius, fire, and goes back into Scorpio, water. And you just like really spoke to the heart of it, Mar, is with these two signs, fire and water, we are really being asked to tap into the magic and embrace the magic of our non-linear way of thinking, of the right brain, our intuitive ways of perceiving reality, our symbolic ways of perceiving reality, our multidimensional nature, like ways of perceiving reality. And also we're working with the emotional and the unconscious element as well. And I love Mar you spoke to, like, we often just think of maybe the brain as our mind, but you also spoke to the heart and the gut. The mind is not just the brain. We have our heart mind, and our gut mind, and we have like the neural pathways like that are like in the mind, the brain, within the heart and the gut. We have like the neuroreceptors, and our body produces the neuro, that's what I'm trying to call recall. Our heart and gut also produce a lot of the neurotransmitters that our mind does. And so we're being asked to connect more with the heart mind and the gut mind as well, especially with that fire element, like the gut mind as well, and to integrate these three minds together and our way of perceiving reality. And with the fire element, it is so much about identity. The way we fire element is it's our identity, that we are each individual expressions of that same, of spirit, right? It's we're each fractals of spirit. And the fire element is how, in my own unique personal way, how am I bringing spirit through? How am I shining in my own unique personal expression, a vehicle of spirit moving through? And so with the fire retrogrades, and you spoke to it, Mar, it's like, how can we shine more in our essence? What needs to shift in our ways of thinking? What self-limiting ways of thinking do we have about our identity that need to shift to open up to more of the flow of spirit? And I feel like going into the water element is going to help us bring more of that flow of spirit through our individual expression of identity. And with going into the water element, this is about, right, like the symbolic nature of reality. Seeing the signs, the symbols, the synchronicities that are always guiding us. What alchemy wants to occur within our around our emotional connection to stories, because emotions are governed by the water element, and emotions are the pure feelings with the mental story added to them. So I can be feeling the pure feeling of grief or anger, or it can be ecstasy, elation, bliss, like whatever it is. I can be feeling those pure feelings as they are. But when we start putting a mental story, which is very much like the moon, when those start getting tied to the feeling, that actually is what becomes an emotion. So I'm feeling anxiety because blah, 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 because I had this thing happen in the past, or I have this fear about the future. And then I start dragging emotions, then they get stuck. I get stuck in the emotional experience because my mind, Mercury, is running the moon, that lunar story. And so we have this invitation to kind of clear some of that. What alchemy needs to happen on that mind, the mental story around the lunar story. So we're not just like stuck in these emotions, which perceive, right? The emotions actually put filters on our reality, right? If I have this story that nobody likes me, I'm going to start interacting with people in unconscious ways that are actually going to start like creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And then I'm going to see it reflected back to me, and I'm going to say, oh, that affirms my story. I knew I was right, But like, it's actually, we're not seeing the whole, like, it's because I have the perception and it's overlaying my reality. And I'm only like I'm like missing every time someone's interacting with me in a way that counteracts that belief, but I'm only seeing it because like that's what my perception is, right? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So there's so much alchemy on that. And I think I want to just pull up the slides, and Mar, just like jump in anytime to kind of just like ground us in. I have a little bit of like, these are the key points of each Mercury retrograde this year. So I kind of just wrote all the dates on these slides, mostly just so if you want to, like you can screenshot these or write them down so that way you can come back to them later. Like if you keep like an astro calendar or something, like maybe just go ahead and put the Mercury retrograde dates in because it can be great to know like Mercury retrograde. I actually don't find that you can't like do anything new during those times, but if you can create more time for slowdown, create more buffer for, you know what, things like might not go as according to plan. I might have to go back and redo something. It happens. And like that's just that happened. Like that's life. Like we often have these perceptions of I should only do something once and I'm wasting time if I'm going back and doing things. But like that's reality. Sometimes we have to and we come up with a better version when we go back. But if you can just create more of a slowdown in your schedule during Mercury retrograde, that can be great. Like I've traveled during Mercury retrograde and I've had amazing travels. Like I've had some, like it's not that you can't go and do anything. Like I've traveled during Mercury retrograde flawlessly, like with no delays or issues, and I've traveled during non-Mercury retrogrades with like major mishaps. So, and I've launched things during Mercury retrogrades and they've gone great. So just listen to your own intuition. What I'm saying is to not get into the fear around like, don't do this, don't do that. Just listen to your own intuition around it. But these are the Mercury retrogrades of the year. So the first one, Aries into Pisces, March 14th to April 7th, 9 Aries to 26 Pisces, the Leo retrograde, July 7th to August 12th, 15 Leo to 4 Leo, and the third one, Sagittarius into Scorpio, November 9th to November 29th, 6 Sagittarius to 20 Scorpio. And these are just the Cazimi dates. To me, these are like power portals during Mercury retrograde. It's when Mercury is in alignment with the sun. It's like a new Mercury, just like a new moon. It's the seeding energy for the next 4-month Mercury cycle. It's like when Mercury, the magical messenger, flies into the heart of the sun, picks up a solar impulse, a creative inspiration from the sun, and sends us this like creative inspiration for the next 4-month Mercury cycle. But these are really like I noticed with the Cazimis, they are powerful days to really receive because inspiration can come in, new ideas, inspiration around creative projects, communication projects, a new way of like it can be like that like epiphany. It's like, oh, I can see something in a new way now that really changes us, that changes the way we're interacting with our reality. So, and it's a great day for intention setting around Mercury type things as well. This would be like a whole nother talk, but you can really work with the 4-month Mercury cycles very intentionally around like creative projects and communication projects. I did it with the Mercury Retrograde Alchemy Summit, and it's amazing. So just put them in your calendar, March 24th. There's a Mercury Cazimi at 4 degrees of Aries, July 31st at 9 degrees of Leo, November 20th at 28 Scorpio. And so you can like look at what house do these Cazimis fall in your natal chart, and something new, a new idea is being seated in that area of your life. So for example, this just made me think of it. My ascendant degree is 9 degrees of Leo. So I'm like, wow, there's a Mercury
My
Cazimi.
yeah, my North Node that we have both.
Is that 9 Leo? Wow. So this Mercury retrograde or that Mercury Cazimi is going to be something so significant for your future direction, Mar. I cannot wait to hear back on that one. So it's exciting. And look at that for all the Mercury retrogrades. What house or houses is Mercury retrograding through in your natal chart? And that might give you some more clues or context to what is wanting to be reframed. What mental patterns are wanting to be alchemized in what area of your life. So that can be something really interesting to look at. So this first Aries into Pisces retrograde, right? Aries, the I am that I am, in a very, it's like so much about cardinal energy. It's like us getting to explore spirit incarnating into matter. It's so much about like our self-identity, right? And the way we perceive ourselves, our sense of self-agency that And I love you actually said something in your interview, Mar, around you were wanting to say you said something around like it's not about like controlling my life, but knowing that I have like mastery or agency over my life, which can be a very Capricorn thing, but also a very Aries thing that wow, like having a baby, when I notice like when he realizes I have influence over reality around me, like I have agency, I can throw a rock into the water and then there's a ripple. And when he makes that connection that I did that through throwing that rock into the water and he sees that ripple, it's like I can see the light bulb go off. It's like, whoa, this is cool. I have agency in my life around me. And that's like Aries, right? So it feels like to me, and then Pisces is the sign, it's like it's the connection to all that is, right? It's the ocean of oneness. Pisces is how we're interconnected to everyone and everything. So to me, it feels like this retrograde is about um it's like bringing more of that Piscean, bringing more of the totality of our spirit through our individual identity. Like that there's, to me, I'm intuitively feeling that there's some maybe self-limiting belief around the way we might perceive ourselves and our identity that could be alchemized, that could be healed by remembering more of the wholeness of our spirit. And I mean, there's so much here, but what is real, this to me, like this is like one of the most epic or the most epic retrograde of the year, just looking at the astrology, because the way it ties the eclipses, the Venus retrograde, and the way it's dancing like with Neptune and the North Node. I mean, I was just like, wow. So just like I'm just like, wow, look at this. So Mercury goes retrograde March 14th at 9 degrees of Aries. So March 14th is the day of it, that's the opening of our eclipse season. It's the day of the Virgo lunar eclipse at 23 Virgo. So moon at 23 Virgo, um, Sun at 23 Pisces. This is our first eclipse, not on the Pisces Virgo axis, but our first eclipse while the lunar nodes have actually shifted into Pisces and Virgo. So Mercury goes retrograde that day. And then Mercury's going retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries. This is where 2 weeks later, on March 29th, that we are having the Aries solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries. So there's something about this Mercury retrograde that is tying these two eclipses together through the Mercury retrograde. And what does that mean for you? I don't know at this point, but I know it's significant. And that's part of like the water element retrograde is we don't always know all the details around it, right, Pisces, but we can just trust that it's significant. And I was just like, whoa, I can't even believe it. So we see this like connection. We can see and Virgo, right? Like it's a Virgo lunar eclipse. Mercury is that traditional ruler, or I like to say temple keeper of the Virgo mystery. So there's something so significant for each of us. And that's part of the mysteries is we don't always know the exact details around it. It's not always well, that literally is the mystery, right? It's not definable in the most concrete ways. It's a mystery. So there's something through being open to the mystery, being open to not knowing, that's where we get the initiation. But there's something huge with this Mercury retrograde and these eclipses. And eclipses have a unknowable element because they are course corrections to bump us where we need to go on our evolutionary path. And also this Mercury retrograde, that this first one is really like it's really dancing with the Venus retrograde. So Venus goes retrograde from 10 Aries to 24 Pisces. Like that is they're sharing the same retrograde path. And Venus is also going retrograde, like right where that 9 degrees of Aries solar eclipse is on March 29th. So like it's huge. And Venus is starting a new cycle, like in the eclipse season as well. She's moving into that Aries Venus cycle, like it's huge. So The Mercury retrograde is dancing with the Venus retrograde, and the Cazimis are very close to the same point. The Venus Cazimi is at 2 degrees of Aries. The Mercury Cazimi is at 4 degrees of Aries. So if you have something in your chart, like this, the first decan, like the first 10 degrees of Aries, or like kind of, the last 5 degrees or so of Pisces, like, wow, you're really lit up. There's like a lot of activation here. Or it's like the first decan of the cardinal signs, right? So Libra, you get the opposition. Capricorn and Cancer, you're getting the squares, or the last like kind of, you could say 10 degrees, 5 degrees of the mutable signs. Virgo, you get the opposition to Pisces. Gemini and Sagittarius, you're getting the squaring energy. So, I mean, this is huge. Our two personal planets that are between the Earth and Sun, Venus, Mars, going retrograde together. There's a lot of also kind of excitement and talk around, there's some ideas that maybe like the ending of the Kali Yuga is like kind of with this like equinox of this Aries equinox. There's I think Bibu Dev Mishra, I think I'm saying his name wrong, but there's like a lot of going around the astrology, around like his research he's done around that. I don't know exactly, but I know it's exciting and there's something so significant. And each of us, I feel like there's some like not only like a Mercury retrograde is a reset of our mind. It's not only a reset of our mind, but it's also like a reset of our heart, Venus. It's like a reset of our spirit as well, with the way that Mercury is dancing like with Neptune in this retrograde. It's the eclipses. Mercury's dancing with the North Node. I feel like there's some major reset that might not be revealed to us in the moment, but like when we look back a year or years later, we can look back to, wow, I had some reset then that really shifted my trajectory. And we don't need to like, and when I say that, like we don't need to like make more of it than it is, meaning like we don't need to put pressure, because that's never helpful. It's not like, and this is like fire and water, especially the Pisces North Node. We don't need to make something happen forcefully. Like it's more about just surrendering, trusting. And even if it doesn't look on the surface, but there can be like the fear of missing out when there's like a lot of excitement around an astrology transit. I just want to like stop sharing the screen for a second. When there's a lot of excitement around an astrology transit, like I know myself, I've had like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to miss out. And I feel like, what do I need to do to like make sure I'm not missing out on the energy? It's like yes and no. On some sense, you don't need to do anything. It's like letting go, let be, let flow. Now, we also might have some of us, we all have different paths and we're all in different relationships. So some of us might be, wow, there are doors opening where I need to step through this door right now and claim it and take action. That might be some of us during these transits to like shift the trajectory. Others of us, it might be, I actually just need to let go and let flow and trust and surrender. So wherever we are on that spectrum, that we can trust that whatever's happening is happening, that we can't miss out on our destiny. We can't miss out on our future. And so if you're called to take action, take action. If you're called to like do nothing and it seems like I don't see any difference in my life, totally okay too. You can trust that this is the Pisces, right? You can trust that the higher unfolding is happening outside of your conscious awareness to bring you to your path. You can't miss it. So I just want to say that because I've before gotten into like, well, do I need to, is it because I didn't do like the right like intention setting or this or that, or should I have like done that ritual that I didn't do? And I can get into like, did I miss it? Just like trust. This is Pisces. You can't miss your destiny, right? And it's about trusting when we're meant to take action, Aries, and trusting when we're just meant to let go and let be and flow, Pisces. And that's like the Aries to Pisces retrograde. Yeah. So anything you
Love
want
to
to
yeah, a few things because I'm completely mind blown with this one, particularly. And I will say, regarding what you were saying of not taking action or taking action and missing out, is not only what is happening to us, it's also what we are taking action towards. And I will say that in this solar eclipse, that is so woven with the Venus and the Mercury retrograde, I feel that it's a time for everyone to take action into being who they are, like fully. Uh, just I am possible is something that is so Aries, and it's just like I am who I am and I love myself, and then take action towards like a rebirth. Like I keep feeling that there is this rebirth that the solar eclipse is woven into it, but then we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction in 2026, so we have like a year of between this solar eclipse and this Mercury retrograde that you were talking about, and the conjunction of Neptune and Saturn at zero Aries in February 2026, that we have that year to really feel into who I am truly now, not an old version of myself, but the one that I'm really now. What are my desires from my soul? And go for it. And like stopping with excuses and with fears and with the stories. And I love everything that you were sharing about the emotional part of the stories and the feeling is just I'm sad, and that's it, it's gone. It's super quick, like we can move feelings really quickly and then continue with our lives. If we feel sad for a while because somebody died that it was really close to us, it's completely fine. But if we tell to ourselves, then I'm not going to love anybody else ever again. That's the story. Like, doesn't have anything to do with the loss or the grief. Is the moment that you say something to yourself, and I feel this Mercury, like during this time, is going to be so powerful to be open to different ways of perceiving reality and doing shamanic journeys, dream work, hypnosis, dancing, like anything that works for you to really receive who are you meant to become. Because there is something inside of every single person in the planet, I think, that is going to be reborn. Like we have that opportunity of a new identity, a new person emerging from the waters, and is not really missing out or not, but being brave about who you truly are. Because like if we keep being slaves of an old version of ourselves, then it's going to be a very difficult year, because I think the whole universe is going to conspire to bring the essence of who you are. So it's like the more we resist, the harder it's going to get, and the more that we just say, "This is who I am," and that's it. There is no shame around who I am. The more there is this 1 year portal of a new person being born. So I just needed to share that.
I love that. I'm just feeling so much yes. And it's like, really, it's like the time is now, which is very Aries. It's like the time is now. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is amazing. Let me find. Okay. So just to kind of note, these are two really important things with the Mercury retrograde. I can't even talk. I'm trying to put Pisces and Mercury together. Okay. So Mercury is going to be dancing with the North nodes 3 times. Now, I have when I have 3 dates here, like when Mercury aspecting a planet or a point. The first one is the pre-retrograde pass before Mercury goes retrograde, when Mercury is going over that pre-retrograde shadow. The second one, wow, that's my birthday, April 4th, is the retrograde pass. So this is when Mercury is aspecting, in this case, the North node during the retrograde. And then the third one is the post-retrograde pass, when Mercury is coming back over that retrograde, post-retrograde shadow, some people call it, and it's like the post one. So we get 3, when Mercury goes retrograde, if it aspects a planet, oftentimes it's going to do it 3 times, pre-retrograde, retrograde, and post-retrograde. So what is this so significant? Mercury is going to make 3 passes to the North Node at 27 degrees of Pisces. So if you have something around 27 Pisces or aspecting 27 Pisces, there's something really significant. Mercury with the North Node, this is about what the reset, what perspective needs to shift to support our future forward, our destiny forward, our pathway forward. So these are significant. And this is the first time Mercury's coming with the North Node now in Pisces. So this is saying connect to that Pisces current, like you said, Mar, the dream work, the dancing, the shamanic practices, the symbolic, like what the energetic, like whatever it is. It's about also Pisces seeing, having awareness of the higher perspective. Even if I can't see all the Virgo details, I have a trust in the higher perspective, the higher unfolding. It's connecting with our, our spirit guides, our higher self, like the higher realms of consciousness to guide us forward as well. I could say so much more about that, but like for the sake of time, I'll just keep it at that. Because Mercury conjunct Neptune, to me, this is a huge one because Mercury is dancing with Neptune as Neptune is going from Pisces into Aries. And then Neptune's actually going to retrograde back into Pisces later this year and then like go back into, in 2026, go back into like Aries to stay for a long time. But this is huge because Neptune is that connection to all that is. Neptune, it is like pure spirit. It's the higher realms of consciousness. So this is really like wanting to, Neptune's a dissolving energy. What ways of our thinking need to be dissolved? Neptune is not illusion or delusion or deception, but we often work with illusion, delusion, and deception when Neptune is present because we have to clear that to connect to the true essence, right? Spirit, all that is like what we actually don't even have words to describe. It's like pure love. So what we might have what old illusions, what ways are we seeing reality not as it is because we have a story, an illusion or a delusion that is overlaying our reality that we need to dissolve away so we can really see things from this higher spiritual perspective. So like, this is huge. So March 2nd, Mercury is conjuncting Neptune at 28 Pisces, right? Like one of the very last 2 degrees of Pisces. Then this is huge. March 29th, this is the day of the Aries solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries. Mercury is going retrograde, conjuncting Neptune at 29 Pisces and 59 arc minutes. This is as Pisces last part of the zodiac as it gets. Not only 29 Pisces, 59 arc minutes. That is the last. It is like literally the last degree of the zodiac as it gets. So this to me is huge around. I feel like there's something so powerful about that happening on the day of that Aries solar eclipse about truly what needs to dissolve around the illusions, the delusions, the deceptions, that the stories that are really holding us back from being who we truly are. Like there is some really powerful message from spirit wanting to flow through if we can really open up and receive. Like we are the oracle, we are the channel. Like, whoa, there's something huge there. Maybe we go back more and do like a talk just on that later. So, and then on April 16th, Neptune's moved into Aries by that point, like 0 point, infinite possibility energy. Mercury's coming back, 0 point, infinite possibility energy, meeting at Neptune at 0 Aries. This is really a reset, like a reset to bring more of our spirit through, more of our higher self, to live really truly as spiritual beings, living magical spiritual beings, living a magical embodied human life. I don't know, like that's like the message coming. Okay, so the Leo retrograde, that's like the most on that retrograde. These I'm going to be much shorter because that first one to me is like there's so much epicness. But Leo retrograde, July 17th to August 11th, 15 Leo to 4 Leo. And with the dates, I'm giving it based on Pacific time zone. So I want to honor, like we have people all over the world. It might be like a day off based on where you live. So just to note that. Mercury Cazimi at 9 degrees of Leo, July 31st. So Leo, right? Fixed fire. This is about what needs to shift with our mind, our stories, so we can access more of our creative energy so we can break through creative blockages and really let our creative energy flow. What stories, perception needs to shift to access more of our inner creatrix? What needs to shift so we can be more fully expressed? Leo to me is about being fully expressed. Like, this is truly, I am in my fixed fire. I am showing up exactly as I am, like no apologies. So to allow ourselves to take up space, to allow our light to shine big and bright, what needs to shift so we can really show up to our lives and let our light shine big and bright? Like, I mean, to me, those are like the big things about that retrograde. So what's really significant about this retrograde is really Mercury is retrograding back. The last part of this Mercury retrograde, this is where Mercury is dancing with all these new energetics. So Mercury is going to station direct at 4 Leo, and it's going to station opposite Pluto, which will be now at retrograde at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So there's something about this new energetic with Pluto and Aquarius. I feel like there's some, perhaps maybe shadow unconscious thing that we're going to be alchemizing that retrograde so we can bring more of our heart expression, creative expression, Leo, to support the collective, right? Pluto and Aquarius. And then also Mercury is going to trine Neptune retrograde and Saturn retrograde that are making it to 1 Aries by that point. So in this harmonious fire dance, this new energetic with Neptune, Saturn right there, there's like this new, like, to me, that Mercury stationing direct trining them, it's a supportive energy. It's like, bring your heart, bring your creative expression, bring the fullness of yourself to bring in these new, especially like Neptune there, right? This new frequency through. Yeah, so Sagittarius into Scorpio retrograde. This is November 9th to November 29th. 6 Sagittarius to 20 Scorpio. The Cazimi is on November 20th at 28 Scorpio. So there's something so powerful here. Like, Sagittarius is very up and out, like, right? It's the visionary. I'm shooting my arrow, the sky's the limit. Like, I mean, this is Sagittarius, but we have to go back Scorpio and go into the depths of our emotional being. Something needs to shift, like maybe something that's kind of frozen, a story, emotional story that's like kind of gotten frozen in our unconscious that needs to shift so we can really connect to like that Sagittarius visionary, like the sky's the limit energy, and maybe bring more, like, Scorpio is also, it's like the power at the depth of our soul, like that like life force energy. So we need to go back and thaw out whatever's frozen there so we can really bring that like potency of our life force energy to like the sky's the limit with a Sagittarius visionary energy. So just some interesting things. Saturn stations retrograde conjunct Mars at 3 Sagittarius. There's something really important about action. We're reorienting how we're taking action, Sagittarius, towards our big visions. And Mercury going retrograde in Sagittarius, this is about reorienting our bigger beliefs, our truths, where we think, oh, I know the world to be this way, and we feel certain about it. We're reorienting that to say, actually, maybe I don't know how things are, and I'm open to a new way. So, and then Mars actually, Mercury conjuncts Mars at 6 Sagittarius while retrograde on November 12th. And then Mercury stations direct, not direct. Mercury, I just want to say Mercury dances with Venus this retrograde as a note. Conjuncts Venus November 24th at 22 Scorpio. This is near the end of the retrograde. So we have the mind and heart. Venus is direct. She's not retrograde. So there's only that one connection there. But there's this open, like there's like so much more depth wanting to open up that they're meeting in the Scorpio waters of our mind and heart joining there. And then just these are like, this is huge. I mean, this is like, to me, the biggest thing about the Sagittarius into Scorpio retrograde is Mercury is dancing with Uranus, going from Mercury's actually, our Uranus has already made it into Gemini, but Uranus is retrograding back into Taurus at this time, and Mercury's opposing in Sagittarius and Scorpio. And why is this especially significant? Because Uranus has now moved into Gemini at this point, and that is Mercury's temple. So there's something huge here. So on October 29th, this is pre-retrograde, Mercury at zero, right? 0 point energy, zero Sagittarius is opposing Uranus at zero Gemini. This is like, whoa, really big kind of like mental reset. Some say, Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, Uranus being the higher mind, Mercury being our human mind. So it's like, how is Uranus going to Gemini, the higher mind, actually coming through the human mind? I mean, there's like a huge kind of mental, energetic, nervous system upgrade happening here with Gemini, Uranus going into Gemini. While Mercury's retrograde November 19th, Uranus has already retrograded back from Gemini into Taurus. So Uranus is at 29 Taurus now. Mercury is going back and retrograde or opposing Uranus at 29 Scorpio. And then December 10th, when Mercury is direct, Mercury will come to 28 Scorpio and will oppose Uranus at 28 Taurus. Like could have maybe put those where Uranus was, but you can just know Uranus is opposite. And then Mercury is going to trine Neptune with this retrograde, pre-retrograde at 29 Scorpio. Mercury will trine Neptune, who will be already back in Pisces at 29 Pisces. While Mercury's retrograde, going to come back to 29 Scorpio, trine Neptune at 29 Pisces, and then post-retrograde, again, come to 29 Pisces, trine Neptune at 29 Scorpio. So it's like there's something, this 29 degree, it's the critical degree, the final degrees of the sign. To me, there's something huge around Scorpio, something around our unconscious, that there's a supportive energy that wants to shift, but also like I actually feel with this, the trining energy, this is like when we're really being initiated. That Scorpio, they're like Scorpio has that knowing. It's like I can see right into a situation and it's like I energetically know. Like there's something like with the Scorpio energy, we've been so conditioned out of like knowing and trusting our intuition. There's something really powerful about that Scorpio, that like piercingness of like Scorpio can just see into a situation, and trining Neptune at 29 Pisces, there's just something intuitively like this, like I'm feeling this like piercing, like we're like piercing the veil with that mental energy, but it's more about like Mercury being retrograde, receiving, so we can like receive some higher like download or something. I mean, I'm like, my mind is super blown with these
And
retrogrades.
it feels also with this last one, it feels like an ending, like an ending that goes lifetimes, because Scorpio is also our blood ancestors. And it's so interesting that it's doing this trying and opposition in the degree that they are finishing. Like we are not experiencing Neptune in Pisces ever again
Yeah.
in, in this lifetime, and we are not well, yeah, no, we are, I don't know how, because Uranus takes 84 years, I think, to go around. So yeah, for me to live 84 years more, like if we get to 100 and a few, maybe, right? But if not, is with Uranus, maybe, right? If we change the human biology and we start living to hundreds of years.
Yeah, who
But the
knows?
next
Uranus and Gemini, maybe the technology will come through. Who knows?
one, like that, I'm not sure if we have, if we are going to experience it again, and if someone is listening who is really young, or the babies, maybe, right? Like, of course, but the ones who are adults already is like these are two energies that they're ending for our lifetime. But being in a Scorpio, that Mercury is really feeling this end of ancestral stories, like really deep human conditioning in our relationship with power, because the whole structures is done to disempower us. Like since the conditioning in schools and the cultures, like everything is done in a way to take away the control from us. And this is saying you have all the tools that you need inside of you to really have the power to create the life that you want to create. And there is something that I wanted to bring from the beginning, like you started talking. There is a book that is called The Source, and it's about neuroplasticity and how we can train our habits and neurons to really open up new pathways within our brain. And there is more and more research done in that neuroplasticity of how powerful our brain is, and how we can rewire our mental structures and really tap more into gifts and talents that we don't even know we have, that they are hidden. So that feels a lot also of that Mercury retrograde in Scorpio is like unleash all these gifts and talents that they were hidden in shame, fear, ancestral trauma, anything. It's like go through the fear in order to really unleash Pandora's box. But instead of bringing courses is bringing all these gifts and talents and power, like suddenly you are painting and you didn't know you could paint, but it's a gift from previous life. I love
Wow.
it. It's kind of that, and it's like wow.
Really got that message for that last retrograde. Wow, I'm like really getting chills. They're huge. Like, aren't these retrogrades mind-blowing? Like, what?
And we are both like, "Woo."
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're huge. I just there's such amazing mental resets for us to really expand our mind beyond our previous limit, self-limiting beliefs and stories, so we can really connect to what is possible for us and our lives and the world around us, because the world needs us, like, right, Pluto and Aquarius, to show up in our authenticity.
Totally, totally, 100%. Thank you so much for all the wisdom, for all the inspiration, for the joy, for the energy. We need more and more. Like astrology doesn't have to be this dry, mental, is alive, like astrology. And you can feel it in both of us. We are
Aries,
fully
Aries, Aries sons.
we're both in love with astrology. Is a lover. Is not a mental construct to determine our lives. Is prison that really help us to trust life and to trust that the changes that are coming are for our greatest and highest and more expansive good and potential. So thank you so much. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm just so grateful to be here. And just to share, I have on the free gifts that I have offered are a 5-day connect, like embody your empowered expressions of your planet. So the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. There's a video on all of them and how to embody those in more conscious and empowered ways. And I've also created a guide on how to essentially parent the 12 moon signs to understand the unique emotional needs of each of the moon signs and how to meet their needs. And this certainly, if you are a parent and have a child, like this can be so helpful. But even if not, it can help you understand yourself and everyone who's in your life, whether it's loved ones, friends, family members, co-workers. Knowing this can be applied to how to actually even parent yourself, because we're pretty much all in reparenting journeys with our own inner mother and inner father. But we can also apply it to just anyone that we know. So I feel like it's something applicable to anyone. So I just wanted to share that as well.
I love it. I love it. And I love what you said that is also for like being our own father and mother and really take care of ourselves. And especially when we're having difficult times, I always feel it's like go back to your moon and take care of your moon. Because when you are like in a process of initiation, like a loss, a really difficult times, especially if there is grief and things like that, and there will be a lot of changes during this year that sometimes we're going to feel the floor is not stable, like we are not rooted go back to your moon, and that's your grounding place. It's like from there you grow. But if you are not connected with your moon, you are not really rooted, you are not grounded, you're not feeling safe. If you don't feel safe, you don't open the rest of your chart. And that emotional safety is so important. So, yeah, I think this guide can be really helpful to do that, especially if someone is having difficult times or like a lot of changes and they don't know what to do. It's like your moon and parent your moon. So I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for like, seriously, we are both like this. I don't know how I'm going to sleep. That is later here.
Yeah, I feel like
And thank you everyone for like joining the summit. And this will be in the first days. So it's like, please like let us know how you are experiencing everything. And it's such a pleasure to put together this event with the four of us in such a beautiful co-creation. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Bye, everyone. See you in the other talks.